rough agenda. I'm going to introduce myself and give you a little background on my journey to date, just so you have an idea of what it takes to work at NVIDIA or anywhere you'd like to, and realize it's not one path, right? There's many different ways to get there. I'm also going to talk about the application frameworks and the NVIDIA stack. So a lot of you are familiar with NVIDIA technology, but I think it would help to break it down per industry and for application. And we'll go all the way down, from the hardware all the way up to the software and the application, and then just come back down right in the middle and go deeper into the nucleus of Omniverse. I'm going to talk about digital twins and standardizing on OpenUSD. We already talked about that earlier today, and why that's important, right? Having this standardized format for files in this space. We're going to talk about customer case studies, talent, jobs. I know a lot of you guys are thinking about that, and partners, resources, where you can find a lot of material online. And then we're going to leave about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So maybe as you're thinking about your questions, you can write it down, because there's a lot of material and I want to get through all of it. And I also have videos that I want you to enjoy. So with that, I'm going to get into myself a little bit. So my name is Priya Ravindran. I'm a product sales specialist for Omniverse. I joined the company about 8 months ago, and my focus for Omniverse at NVIDIA is to leverage the power of AI and digital twins to transform change across industries, right? So really trying to move the needle with innovation. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of startups in the AI machine learning space, so that's been my background, and I'll break down kind of how that started, and mainly in machine learning and advanced technologies. I brought a lot of these core competencies into the operations of a lot of large customers, name brands you've probably heard of, and banks, to name a few. Before diving into Omniverse, however, I do want to give a little bit of time here to recognize you guys are all incredible minds gathered here. You're all from different backgrounds. You've got engineering, you've got 3D, you've got computer science and AI. And while you're thinking about your future, right, and the types of jobs you want to have, there's probably a little bit of anxiety around what that looks like. That's my guess. Especially as you're getting into your deeper studies or higher education. I may not be able to answer or solve that problem for you, but I can share a little bit about my journey and see how it resonates with you. And especially in a landscape that's constantly evolving right now, with all the changes happening with the introduction of Gen AI, the geopolitical stuff that's going on, the economic factors, it's a lot to take on, right? But you'll be able to see that there are several parallels to what's happening today in your current environment to what happened 20 years ago. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of how old I am. So I went to UCLA, and that was almost 23 years ago. I graduated with an electrical engineering and computer science degree. I like to say things that are relevant to today's talk, but I had a lot of internships, okay? I tried a lot of different things. There were shady companies I worked with, but the one that was notable as it applies to today is an internship I did at DreamWorks. And through that experience, I got to learn a little bit about Maya and Houdini and some of these 3D tools that they were using. My job was to color calibrate monitors for the background artists of the movies that were really popular back then, like Shrek 2 and Spirit, and really cool stuff. And I thought it was great, and while I enjoyed animation, my heart was set on coming back from LA, back to the Bay Area, and work in Silicon Valley. My dad, who's here today, worked for Intel, so I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps and work for a big company and kind of get everything started. That didn't really happen. And it didn't happen because right around the time I graduated, which was after 9/11, we had the dot-com boom, and then we had the dot-com bust, right? So all my peers who graduated, who was saying that they were on the 5-year track? Dexter? Yeah, so I was on a 5-year track, right? I didn't graduate right on time. Thank God, right? I would have been laid off immediately. And when I graduated, everybody who had gotten hired were now laid off looking for a job. And I had no experience, so therefore I didn't really get a job. So I found myself unemployed for about 2 years, which is a long time in the grand scheme of things. But I picked up little things like tutoring, and I even waited tables for a little bit. And then I decided, hell, I'm getting out of here, right? I'm gonna go travel the world. I spent some time backpacking through Europe. And then I got the chance to go to India for 6 months where, you know, I'm a classical dancer. And so while I was in India dancing, I also skilled up. I leveled up. I learned a little bit about database technology, and that added to my computer science and electrical engineering degree. Well, when I came back, it was perfect timing because the market started to soften a little bit, and I networked. And through perseverance and through, you know, just getting out there, dusting myself off, getting out there, interviewing, getting rejected, I happened to get a job, and my first job started in 2003. And it really paved the way for a series of jobs I had, which I call foundational to understanding a little bit about what I was capable of before I actually got into what I really love to do. So here's my career in a nutshell. I am heavily summarizing this, but if you go to my LinkedIn, you can probably see everything I've done, right? So the first 10 years was foundational. I worked for big companies like PayPal, Wells Fargo, Newstar. The jobs included things like database engineer, project manager, business analyst. I also became a product manager. At some point, I was poached by a software vendor, and they said, hey, you know, you're really good at talking. I guess that meant I wasn't coding. You should try sales engineering. And that's how I got into sales. My first foray into sales was sales engineering. So I worked for a bunch of software companies, including an AI machine learning company. And that took me on a path for the next 9 years. And then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, a lot of things started to change in the economy, right? Like there was all of a sudden money being printed, and you know, startups getting all kinds of funding. And here I am grinding at this startup, you know, making good money, but you know, it wasn't thrilling enough. I was bored, and I wanted to do my own thing. And that is certainly what I did. So I decided to launch my own business. I had a consulting business in sales consulting, which meant I sold myself. I had to sell my services. If I didn't work, I didn't eat, right? So it was very challenging, but yet very, very rewarding. And one thing I will recommend, if you ever get the opportunity to do so, you may not do it right out of school, but if you ever get the opportunity, definitely try starting a business. It is so hard, but yet so rewarding, and the failures, and I say that, you know, with confidence, the failures you endure are gonna teach you so many things, right? And right at that time when I thought I couldn't take anymore, NVIDIA came knocking at my door. And there's a whole story about that we don't have time to get into, but one of the things that came up with NVIDIA was they wanted to hire me for this role, Omniverse sales specialist. And I was thinking, well, what the hell do I have to do with Omniverse? I've been in AI machine learning. And you'll see that NVIDIA is really an interesting company, right? They're not just a product company. They're just not a technology company. They're not even an AI company to begin with. They were a graphics processing unit company. They focused on gaming. But what did they do? They built products that made markets. They created those markets. And through the process of creating those markets, they created an ecosystem of other players in the market that sort of rode their coattails along the process. And it took them a long time to do it. It didn't happen overnight. And I truly believe the culmination of all of my experiences, you know, including dance, right, brought me to this moment. And I'm very grateful for it, because it's been a wild ride, and I'm on the bleeding edge of the most, you know, unimaginable technology conversations you could have, and it's a pretty exciting ride. All right, so that's me. But in order to understand NVIDIA, we need to go back in history, right? So I think before we go into the future, you always want to look at the past to see what you can learn. So let's talk about how NVIDIA started. NVIDIA started in 1993. It was founded in Santa Clara, California, with an initial investment of $40,000, just $40,000. And there was a belief that the GPU would become central to future computing needs. The GPU hadn't even been created yet, okay? So 1993, it was started by 3 founders. Jensen Huang, still one of the founders, is the CEO today. In 1995, they came out with their first product called NV1. And NV1 was an early 3D multimedia graphics accelerator. It didn't get wide adoption, but it marked the company's entrance into the graphics space. So it featured both 2D and 3D graphics capabilities, and they were bundled into the game Sega Saturn. While it was a failure, yes, it was a failure, it didn't discourage the team. They focused on refining their approach, and 6 years later, they built the GPU. Now, everyone knows the GPU because it powers these amazing games and really dominated the gaming industry for quite a bit. But at that time, when it came out in 1999, the GeForce 256 introduced a revolutionary architecture which allowed hardware, not software, hardware to transform lighting, right, which is called TNL, and that improved 3D performance. Now, once the GPU was invented, it redefined the market for gaming. But it wasn't just gaming that they were after. Eventually, these graphics started to make their way into scientific computing, AI, and that's really kind of what the early 2000s were all about. When we get into the 2000s, the biggest innovation of that time was CUDA. Who knows what CUDA stands for? Pop quiz. That's okay. So CUDA is Compute Unified Device Architecture. It played a crucial role in making NVIDIA's GPUs programmable for general purpose. So this is an accelerated library, and it focused on tasks beyond graphics, right? Especially scientific computing, AI, etc., deep learning, all of that stuff. And then it became widely adopted for AI. Now, as we get into the 2010s, probably when you guys were in grade school, we are now looking at autonomous driving, we're looking at data centers, we're looking at high performance computing, all of this stuff. We're also looking at Gen AI. GPUs, CUDA, RTX GPUs came out at that time. It was the perfect storm. What you'll hear a lot in NVIDIA technology and stacks is this idea of convergence. Convergence is when there are discrete technologies that are kind of being worked on in randomized ways. It feels like you're in a dungeon and you don't know what this is for. Purpose, you're questioning the purpose of this. Why am I doing this? And that's because NVIDIA takes 10-year bets or 20-year bets. In this case, a 31-year bet. Because they knew at some point there was going to be a need for computation, right, at a scale that no one could achieve. And because of that, they stayed focused on the GPU technology and Omniverse. So let's get into Omniverse. What is Omniverse? And with that, I'm going to share a little video. the NVIDIA stack. I'm not going to bore you too much with the hardware. As we know, we talked about GPU. But what I will say is, as the time went on, GPUs continued to advance. So every year there was a new edition of GPU that came out, and every year there was an incremental performance improvement until there was exponential performance improvement. And the main thing to take away from this slide is that all of these hardware and software components, including the accelerated libraries, as I mentioned, CUDA, support application frameworks, which is essentially the business application for the technology. I also like to use this time to talk about, NVIDIA is not an AI company because we build AI. We're an AI company because we enable you to build AI, right? You're the developer, you're in the driver's seat. So think about these application frameworks as just recipes to get other companies started. So as you are thinking about the ecosystem, thinking about convergence, you want to think about all the different ways these technologies can also be pulled together to create something great. So we're in the analogy of the gold rush, we're in the picks and shovels space, right? So while everyone's going to find gold, we're like, hey, you want a shovel? You want a shovel here? And that's what we're doing, right? We're not trying to find you gold. We're trying to get other people to find you gold or tell you how to do it, right? So it's really important to make that distinction. So at the top here, you see application frameworks, and I'm just going to name them off because we're going to go into them one by one. The first one is Modulus. I'll explain what that is. The next one is Monai. The next one is Maxine, Nemo, Avatar, Drive, Isaac, Metropolis, and Holoscan. Now, all of these application frameworks are built off of two platforms, either one or both. The first one is NVIDIA AI. It's the software platform that sits on top of the entire stack that is optimized to run AI applications and microservices. The second one is NVIDIA Omniverse. That's the world I live in. And NVIDIA Omniverse's entire purpose is to create a digital rendering of the physical world. And combining these two creates just that much more possibility, right? So let's get into a little bit about what Modulus is first. And I'm going to read off of here because it's a lot. There's a lot of information. So someone stand by the lights. Sorry. and we just need someone to hang out there for a little bit as we go through this. So NVIDIA Modulus is a comprehensive AI-driven software framework. It targets physics-based simulations. This is my dad's world. It's essentially a physics-informed neural network, PINNS, and along with deep learning models, they solve partial differential equations and other complex phenomena in fields such as fluid dynamics, structural analysis, heat transfer, and electromagnetics. These are a few use cases in that space, but I think it's better served if I share a video in that space.
To help mitigate the amount of CO2 being released into the atmosphere by industrial operations, we're working with leading companies on the design and operation of carbon capture and storage facilities. One proven method of reducing CO2 in the atmosphere involves injecting it deep into the earth, 800 meters or more, where it can be stored. Facilities currently operating are removing the equivalent of the exhaust of 10 million cars each year. Most commonly, carbon capture takes place at point sources, such as factories or power plants. Before it goes up the smokestack, the CO2 is converted into a supercritical liquid, which can be easily transported to storage wells via pipelines. Determining the geographic location and optimal depth and spacing of each well can be accelerated 700,000 times with NVIDIA Omniverse, NVIDIA Modulus, and accelerated computing. Using Modulus to accurately simulate how CO2 will permeate rock, reservoir engineers can select sites and determine optimal injection rates and pressure. This helps ensure safe operation and long-term storage, reducing the amount of carbon dioxide released into our atmosphere.
All right, hit the lights and hang out there for a second. All right, so the next application framework is Maxine. Sorry, I apologize, it's MONAI. It's Medical Open Network for AI. MONAI builds on top of PyTorch and provides specialized tools for the medical domain, particularly for complex medical images like CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, and ultrasounds. So that's an application. Hang on just a second. The second one here is Maxine, or third one in the list. Again, this is focused on using deep learning techniques to power high quality, low latency communication services, such as video conferencing, streaming, virtual collaboration, and virtual collaboration. It provides AI-driven capabilities for improving video and audio quality, creating avatars, reducing bandwidth, and enabling immersive augmented reality experiences in real time. Let's hit the lights. There's a video on this.
NVIDIA Maxine is a remarkable innovation, one built to advance how we collaborate in this brand new online world of ours. With Maxine, you can speak several languages.
Alles auf einmal in temporal et avec la nuance.
与大家更好地分享你的想法。Eye contact is critical to engaging your audience. Maxine keeps my eyes on you even when they're looking down at the script or when I'm feeling a little nervous. Because you're actually not looking at me, but rather a portrait that Maxine brings to life. From a single photo of me, from a cafe that filled with noise that would normally drown me out, like this.
Okay, hit the light.
NVIDIA Maxine.
All right. Then we have Nemo, which is the end-to-end cloud-native solution for building, customizing, and deploying generative AI models. So as enterprises increase their need to transform with Gen AI, a robust platform or a foundry is needed to construct and manage these sophisticated models. That's where NVIDIA's Nemo comes into play. We also have this thing called NIMs, NVIDIA Inference Microservices. And these are little AI models that are containerized and deployed for various applications. And I like to also call out, I'm wearing some NIMs kicks right now, courtesy of my boss. Our team is an AI omniverse team, so we're here to spread the good word about NIMs. And I have a video on that.
Virtual screening for new medicines is a computationally intractable problem. Existing techniques can only scan billions of compounds and require days on thousands of standard compute nodes to identify new drug candidates. NVIDIA BioNeMo NIMs enable a new generative screening paradigm. Using NIMs for protein structure prediction with AlphaFold, molecule generation with MolMIM, and docking with DiffDock, we can now generate and screen candidate molecules in a matter of minutes. MolMIM can connect to custom applications to steer the generative process, iteratively optimizing for desired properties. These applications can be defined with BioNeMo microservices or built from scratch. Here, a physics-based simulation optimizes for a molecule's ability to bind to a target protein, while optimizing for other favorable molecular properties in parallel. MolMIM generates high-quality drug-like molecules that bind to the target and are synthesizable, translating to a higher probability of developing successful medicines faster. BioNeMo is enabling a new paradigm in drug discovery with NIMs, providing on-demand microservices that can be combined to build powerful drug discovery workflows like de novo protein design or guided molecule generation for virtual screening. BioNeMo NIMs are helping researchers and developers reinvent computational drug design.
All right. Okay. And then we have ACE, which is Avatar Cloud Engine. Now, I love this one in particular because there's a lot of real, applications for this that, that benefit the end user or consumer. So essentially, it's a framework designed to create lifelike, interactive, and intelligent virtual avatars for a wide range of real-time applications such as virtual assistants, customer service, entertainment, and more. ACE combines several advanced AI technologies to enable the creation of avatars that can perceive, understand, and respond to users in a natural, human-like manner. Now, I want to also add, this is also another reason why we have so many products and tools and application frameworks, because we don't know in the gold rush what needs to be used. We're giving that power to the developers to figure out. And so we have all of these technologies that could either be combined or used solo. It really just depends on what the task asks for. So in this case, we're using Omniverse, we're using Unreal Engine, we're using AI, and all kinds of things to simulate this avatar experience. And so it's sort of like a good culmination of a bunch of different technologies at once. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Drive. And this is probably most familiar with autonomous driving. It provides a full suite of hardware, software, and AI tools to enable self-driving cars and advanced driver assistance systems, which is called ADAS, A-D-A-S. And it provides automotive developers with the capabilities to build, train, and deploy AI-driven perception, planning, and control systems for vehicles. And I do have a video for this. Thank you for your participation.
End-to-end autonomous driving is critical to achieving safe and reliable general autonomy. But navigating the physical world is challenging. Current AV development is modular, with components for object detection, tracking, trajectory prediction, path planning, and control. But this approach can fall short in real-world scenarios. NVIDIA researchers built Hydra MDP, an end-to-end driving system for accurate perception and robust decision-making under a unified transformer model. Hydra MDP's performance is showcased in its winning entry in CVPR's challenge for end-to-end autonomous driving. In the contest, Hydra MDP ingests 1 second of vehicle trajectory history and camera and LiDAR data at a reduced frame rate of only 2 frames per second, and generates the next 4 seconds of optimal vehicle path as an output. Hydra MDP's simplified end-to-end architecture optimizes pipelines with less code and better performance. Our model can learn from real-world and simulated driving data. This enables easier handling of rare corner cases and dangerous scenarios, and the ability to more easily mimic human driving, providing a more comfortable and predictable experience. And with NVIDIA Omniverse Cloud Sensor RTX APIs, AV developers can test and validate the results of AV models in physically based virtual environments. Hydra MDP is only the beginning. NVIDIA research is driving breakthroughs in end-to-end systems for generative physical AI across industries.
And we have only 2 more of the application frameworks, and we're going to go deeper into Omniverse. Isaac Sim is, you're going to see it everywhere. It's our robotics platform, and basically you can download this today and use it today to train a robot. But it's a powerful tool because it actually provides you synthetic data. So as you train a robot, you have to simulate it, and in order to simulate it, you need a bunch of data. You need data, you can get through IoT devices, but what if you don't have IoT devices or sensors? Then you need to create it out of thin air. And synthetic data generation is a huge value of Isaac Sim because it allows you to train a robot from scratch without anything to start with. And it's incredibly important with the industrialization of this technology as we get into physical AI and digital twins. I'm going to move forward into Metropolis. So Metropolis is focused on video analytics, analyzes video in real time to help transform the way cities, traffic, businesses, companies, and industries manage video data for improved security, operational efficiency, and overall intelligence. A video here, and this one's with Pepsi.
PepsiCo's products are enjoyed over 1 billion times a day around the world. Getting this many products to their 200 regional markets requires over 600 distribution centers. Improving the efficiency and environmental sustainability of this supply chain is a key goal for PepsiCo. To achieve this, they're building digital twins to simulate their packaging and distribution centers using NVIDIA Omniverse and Metropolis. This allows them to test variations in layout and optimize workflows to accelerate throughput before making any physical investments. As new products and processes are introduced, Omniverse Replicator and NVIDIA Tau can be used to create photorealistic synthetic data to retrain the real-time AI models. These updated models and optimizations are then transferred to the physical world. From here, NVIDIA Metropolis applications monitor and adjust conveyor belt speed in real time using AI-enabled computer vision, helping prevent congestion and downtime across miles of conveyor belts. What's more, with NVIDIA Fleet Command, all these applications can be securely deployed and managed across hundreds of distribution centers from one central plane. By leveraging NVIDIA Omniverse, Metropolis, and Fleet Command, PepsiCo is streamlining supply chain operations, reducing energy usage, and advancing their mission towards sustainability.
And last one, I promise. The final one's important because I think this is how I think operations and surgery and healthcare is gonna really transform. So we have HoloScan, which is focused on data-intensive applications for medical imaging, robotic surgery, and smart medical devices. It allows developers, again, to build and deploy, operate streaming AI applications on medical instruments. So next time I'm getting knee surgery next week, next time you have surgery, ask them, are they using a robot, and ask them maybe what are the application frameworks. They may not know. It's the medical device companies that build this technology that then get shipped to, these institutions. And final video here on this.
Now with Clara Holoscan and NVIDIA Index, we can visualize the entire large volume of living cells in real time as the data is being recorded directly from the microscope. Watching these living cancer cells move about, we can see normal healthy biology and malignant processes at the same time. The fluorescent marker rendered in blue marks nuclei, which we see splitting to form two cells from one cell. A hallmark of cancer is cell division occurring more frequently and with less error checking than normal healthy cells. Using Berkeley's lattice light sheet microscope, the ultimate high resolution allows scientists to see what is hidden to normal light optics, not seen using traditional microscopes. As we zoom in, watch cancer cells display what is thought to be a rare event, even for cancer cell lines. See one cell split into 3 cells. This phenomenon has only been reported anecdotally in a couple of scientific publications. Scientists do not yet know what we will see, but this technique, enabled with real-time processing and visualization, now allows the scientific community to discover new, unseen events like this. Let's see what the future has in store.
All right, so now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, and I promise you we'll wrap this up in 15 minutes. We want to talk about this concept of bridging the digital and physical world, which I alluded to earlier. The main thing here is to understand there's a few key steps in bridging these two worlds. So one, there's a design phase of the physical world, right? So you need the physical components to build the design of the digital twin in 3D. You can use IoT sensors, as I mentioned earlier. You could use Isaac Sim, which is synthetic data. And then once it's designed, right, everything's in place, you got all your objects and 3D assets, now you need to simulate it. So the simulation and optimization step is the ability for the digital twin to run scenarios, optimize processes, and predict outcomes. And it can also use AI in this process as well. Now, once you have your planning and your design and your simulation, now you want to control what's happening in the physical world. So you have this digital twin, and now you want to actually have the digital twin control what's happening in the physical world. And this is usually for smart devices, right? So if you have a smart factory, you have all those IoT devices, but it's talking to your digital twin, and you can control everything from the digital twin itself. And it, automates. Who was asking me about automation? This is where automation comes in. You have real-time operations, and you're constantly creating a feedback loop of data, right? What am I telling it to do? What is it doing? What's it not doing? It's going back and forth. And this is a closed loop feedback, continuous data exchange, enabling dynamic adjustments to both the physical and digital systems. Now let's see that in real life. One more hit on the, oh, you can-
Where are you from, Misty?
I'm from a place called Omniverse.
Okay. Now, Omniverse wouldn't be possible without OpenUSD. And who was I talking to earlier? I think someone, okay, comment we were working on OpenUSD. So what is OpenUSD? OpenUSD is Open Universal Scene Description. It was originated at Pixar. It's an internal framework to handle very large amounts of data, complex and collaborative workflows, especially when there's a lot. I'm talking millions of assets across several disparate teams, and it was designed to address some of these challenges that Pixar had with specific movies back in 2016. Sorry, earlier than that. And once they created it and realized they could standardize on it, they open sourced it, which is why it's called OpenUSD. Made it available to a wide range of industries. And that's when NVIDIA, decided, oh, okay, we're gonna get on the gravy train with this, and we're going to start building Omniverse. I think they started after that, but I'm just joking. In 2023, NVIDIA, Pixar, Adobe, Apple, and Autodesk formed the Alliance for OpenUSD, and this is sort of what we were talking about earlier. In order for any standard to take root, and so when I talk about USD, it's kind of it's a file format. It's essentially what it is. It's kind of like the way JPEGs are to photos, or whatever file format is standardized now. It's open. It needs to have a lot of widespread adoption. And there may be new file formats every day. It's just that if there's no adoption, it's going to be really tough. And that's why this alliance was formed, so that we can get interoperability, I can't say that word, across different industries and organizations, tools, applications, and they can all start working collaboratively together. The benefits of OpenUSD is a unified workflow, cross-platform compatibility. We also have real-time feedback, AI-powered enhancements, and scalable performance, all which are important as you're transforming and digitizing huge worlds, right? You're talking about factories and cars and content creation, etc. And so all of that needs to be standardized on a single format. Now, together with OpenUSD, cloud computing, sensor RTX, NVIDIA NIMs, as I mentioned earlier, synthetic data generation, and SDKs, and developers like yourselves, this is what all is needed to create a factory of the future, right? So it's not just one technology, it's a bunch of technologies mashed together that help us get to that place of digitalization. Now, in terms of use cases, there are, the sky's the limit, but really we try to categorize them into three distinct categories. One is planning, the second is simulation, and the third is operational. Now, planning and simulation can go hand in hand, because as you plan, you need to simulate, you need to plan, you need to simulate. But then the operational side is what actually happens. What are you optimizing for? What are you reducing time for? Are you doing defect detection? Are you improving traffic? Those are the types of operational use cases that you use a digital twin for. I'll get a little bit more detail into why that matters and why you should be thinking about that. This is another slide saying basically the same thing, the three categories, but below it you start to see platform capabilities that support those specific use cases, right? In planning, simulation, and operational digital twin. Now, we've talked a lot about technology, we've talked a lot about application frameworks, we've talked a lot about applications. Let's talk about people, right? This is where you guys come in. And these are some of the jobs and some of the areas that simulation and a lot of these use cases live in. On the left side, you'll see a bunch of engineering tools like Autodesk, Revit, Siemens NX, Creo, a few to name. And then you have all of the use cases on the right side, as I mentioned, integration and planning and operations. But then you have this whole world of engineers that are kind of circling what we call the hub of Omniverse. And all of these people are responsible for that final digital twin, right? Whether it's the planning, the simulation, the output, the deployment to production, they're all a part of that equation. So if you're in any one of those roles, you could be a part of the digitalization revolution. It's just that, it takes a lot of people to get this off the ground. And so that's why, as you're thinking about careers, I wouldn't worry. I would just start somewhere that makes sense to you. And who knows, it'll all converge, right, at some point. Now, here's another example of, what this looks like in real time. So you have your 3D and generative AI tools on the left, and then you have your, simulation in Omniverse. And essentially, this is an example where an industrial planner needs to quickly concept a storage extension to an existing factory. They use Gen AI from Sync Twin to convert a 2D AutoCAD floor plan into a 3D model. Then they populate using Omniverse Deep Search, a Gen AI tool that lets them use natural language to search through their database of warehouse and factory assets. Then they generate lighting and 3D environment maps, and then they place this onto a SEM geospatial plane to see it all in context. So just an idea of all the different things that need to go into one place that can all be worked with each other simultaneously or asynchronously. All right, more use cases and case studies. So this is where the rubber meets the road. So every time I get into a business meeting, a customer will ask, well, what's the ROI on a digital twin? Why do I need a digital twin? Why do I need to spend $500,000 to start to get a digital twin up and running when I can just use mathematic models? The answer is you probably could get away with mathematic models. The only reason why you would need a digital twin is because you want to measure the physical space of that operation, right? You don't need it if it's, you're calculating something that can be done through a general model. You need to actually measure space, the operations within that space, the fluid dynamics within that space, and that's why you need a digital twin. And then I ask, well, what does it mean to you, right? If you were to reduce time, how much money does that save you? And these are a few examples, without reading too many here, because I have 2 videos, I promise that's probably the end, that will show you sort of where that value comes from.
Every day, hundreds of Amazon facilities handle tens of millions of packages, with more than 2/3 of these customer orders handled by robots. To support this highly complex operation, we deployed hundreds of thousands of mobile drive robots and associated storage pods, which allow us to store far more inventory in our buildings than traditional shelving, and which help us move inventory in a safer, more efficient way. Key to this scaling has been our ability to simulate these buildings and understand their performance before we build them. Let's take a look at how NVIDIA Omniverse is helping us optimize and simplify these processes. At Amazon Robotics, we're able to create full-scale digital twins of our warehouses in NVIDIA Omniverse, helping us optimize warehouse design, train more intelligent robot assistants, and gain operational efficiencies. In Omniverse, we are uniquely able to aggregate data sets from many different CAD applications and visualize these massive models in full fidelity realism, enabled by Omniverse's RTX accelerated ray tracing, materials, and physics. Digital twins are an integral part of future warehouses and factories, enabling continuous integration and continuous delivery. With each new software and layout optimization, we can test in the digital twin before releasing to the physical warehouse, preventing any system downtime or failure while maximizing operational efficiencies. Next, packages of every shape, size, weight, and material move rapidly through our fulfillment centers. We use NVIDIA Omniverse to better train autonomous robotics sorting and picking solutions. Training these robots' perception systems Accurately enough to prevent system failures requires massive amounts of high-quality data, but often the data doesn't exist or there isn't enough. When we introduced more reflective tape to our packing materials, the perception systems failed. We retrained the models with physically accurate, photoreal synthetic data generated in Omniverse, indistinguishable from reality, saving weeks of retraining time and increasing model accuracy. Finally, with the digital twins of our facilities and the ability to quickly and accurately train robot perception systems, we can also better configure human-robot workstations, simulating opportunities for better employee ergonomics. At Amazon Robotics, NVIDIA Omniverse digital twins are helping us as we reimagine warehouse logistics from end to end and capturing significant operational efficiencies which enable us to deliver more value to our customers.
Stay right there. One more. We're gonna jump right into the next video and wrap it up.
The $45 trillion global manufacturing industry is comprised of 10 million factories operating 24/7. Enterprises are racing to become software-defined to ensure they can produce high-quality products as quickly and cost-efficiently as possible. Let's see how electronics manufacturer Pegatron uses NVIDIA AI and Omniverse to digitalize their factories. In Omniverse, they start by building a digital twin of their factory, unifying disparate 3D and CAD datasets to provide a real-time view of their complex factory data to their planners and suppliers. In the cloud-native digital twin, planners can then optimize layout virtually before deploying changes to the real factory. The digital twin is also used as a training ground and data factory for Pegatron's perception AIs. They use NVIDIA Isaac Sim, built on Omniverse, to simulate and optimize their fleet of mobile robots, which help move materials throughout the facility, as well as the pick-and-place robotic arms that assist on production lines. In the fully operational factory, Pegatron deploys automated optical inspection, or AOI points, along their production lines, which reduces cost and increases line throughput. NVIDIA Metropolis enables Pegatron to quickly develop and deploy cloud-native, highly accurate AOI workflows across their production lines. Omniverse Replicator generates synthetic datasets of PCBA defects, which are too complex and costly to capture in the real world, like scratches and missing or misaligned components. Pegatron then combines the synthetic data with NVIDIA pre-trained models, NVIDIA Tau for training, adaptation, and optimization, and NVIDIA DeepStream for real-time inference, resulting in AOI performance that is 99.8% accurate with a 4 times improvement in throughput. With software-defined factories built on NVIDIA AI and Omniverse, manufacturers can super accelerate factory bring-up and minimize change orders, continuously optimize operations, maximize production line throughput, all while reducing costs.
Okay. All right, guys, home stretch here. We're gonna talk more about jobs. All right, so what does it take to get this started, right? You might be wondering, well, I don't even know where to start with this stuff. And a lot of our customers feel that way too. They're like, this is amazing, your GTC montage, Jensen did such a great job, tell us more, how do we get started? And we're like, well, you need some people, you need a center of excellence, and you need to hire, or you need to work with our partners, which is an ecosystem we're building as we speak. So 50% of the time, you need your developers, right? So you need your run-of-the-mill Python experts, you need your UI UX people, you need React, and then the other half is divided between your 3D experts, your 3D technicians or artists, folks that have experience with CAD, BIM, OpenUSD, materials, lighting, geometry, animation. That's a good skill set in that bucket. And then the other quarter, it's gonna come from your IT folks, right? So your IT, OT, AI, DevOps. So again, a lot of these jobs, as I mentioned on that other slide, where you have like all these different roles, they all play in this space, right? So if you love what you're doing, you don't need to make any changes, just keep doing it. They even found a home for me, and I don't do any of this stuff anymore, right? Like I just talk. Then you have your program managers. These are people that organize, people that do the budgets. We need a lot of budget for this, just FYI. Technical leads, program managers, et cetera. And then below are the infrastructure and platforms that are required for this to get off the ground. And again, same thing, different slide, just more of like what that team makeup looks like. So as you're thinking about the types of roles, and this is just nomenclature for you, right? As you're going into your interviews, think about what these skills require and what's expected out of these jobs. And that should give you a little bit of a roadmap as to where that's going. Now, the core team is about 20, 25 people, but really to get a virtual factory off the ground, we're looking at 60 people for an initial build on a use case. And then as the use cases start piling up, the complexity is gonna be where the resources come in, but if you're smart, you plan once and then you just reiterate, right? You rinse and repeat. So it just really depends. I mean, we have projects that are like brownfield factories that are like existing factories that they're now trying to make smart, and so they have to go in and do IoT sensors on everything and put cameras on everything. And then they have greenfield factories where they haven't built anything. A very famous retail food company I'm speaking with next week is expanding into Asia, and they're building 200 new stores. So they want to build it once in digital twin before they replicate it and execute the smart restaurant across Asia. So that's another example of where digital twin really, really shines. Now there's two ways to starting and developing on Omniverse. The reason why I'm sharing this slide with you is, again, jobs, right? Like, you can download this today. You do need an RTX GPU for it to render. If you have access to it, I think San Jose State has some Omniverse licenses, I'm not sure. And then you can also work with a partner. So as you're interviewing, think about a number of these partners that you could get involved with, right, from a professional services standpoint. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're building this ecosystem. It's gonna be like huge in about 3 years. But it starts with one or two, and with your skill set, they're looking for talent that's really gonna help them move the needle as we're starting to see more demand for digital twins. Now, Omniverse resources are out there, they're cataloged. I'm happy to share this deck, copy this deck with Dexter, you can send it out to everyone. But all of that's available. We have over 80 tutorials across several different topics. You can check that out. With that, any questions? I promised I would get it done 10 before. Yes?
You mentioned partnering with people,
Yes.
but like us as students, how would we go about it?
No, partners are essentially where you would apply,
Okay.
right? You would work with those so like, everyone wants to work at NVIDIA right now. I mean, just to be honest, 1 in 12 referrals actually get hired. Just to let you know, that's how competitive it is. And folks I've worked with that these are qualified people, a lot of experience, they can't get jobs there, right? It's just a weird company when it comes to headcount, which again speaks to how grateful I am I got to where I am right now, not expecting to be here, but at the end of the day, you can still work on NVIDIA projects. You can work on NVIDIA projects through partners, and that might be a good, backdoor way of kind of getting in to the company if you're interested in the future, or just working on digital twins. Having that experience is incredibly important. Did I answer your question?
Sure.
Yes. Yes. Dexter.
I'm working on a mathematical simulation project right now, and we're
Okay.
just using some normal Python libraries that my professor knows of.
Okay.
And so when you talk about building tools that are going to be big in 30 years from now, you being on the sales team, what's kind of the mindset or methodology behind targeting, let's say, students now like us who are learning to use
Great
tools
question.
versus industries that are like using them right now?
That's an excellent question, and I just had this conversation at lunch because they're like, "What are you in town for?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm here for an executive briefing, and then I'm speaking at San Jose State." And I'm like, it's perfect because this is who we need to be talking about Omniverse with, right? There aren't like millions of Omniverse developers out there. We're building that ecosystem right now, and it starts with students, right? It starts with people who have that skill set, so that when companies go to hire, they know exactly who to bring in. Because right now what we're doing, in all honesty, is we're converting all of these graphic artists from the movies and stuff, into 3D technicians and working on Omniverse projects. That's what we're doing. It's kind of wild, right? Is that what you're doing? Okay, great, yeah. So it's, to me, I'm just like they have no idea what they're getting into because it's not a movie, it's technology, it's industrialization, right? It's a completely different approach to applying technology to these concepts. It's the same skills, it's just different, right? It's a different industry. But if you've been working on movies, in fact, my essay in Omniverse for content creation comes from the movies. He's worked on so many movies, and he's great, but he's like, oh my God, what is happening here? And it's really, it's wild that this is where we're pulling that talent from. So why not start with students when we can actually, mold them the right way into this revolution? So yeah, does that answer your question? That's why we're looking at students to adopt some of these solutions now.
Would you say maybe a little more about you mentioned a few of the science tools, the medical imaging,
Yes.
and the
Holoscan.
fluid,
Yeah, fluid. Yeah.
Maxia, Maxine.
Maxine, Monai, all of that stuff. Yeah.
How do you imagine growth, and what does growth look like for those ones?
Yeah, so right now NVIDIA AI has, I think, 45 different components. Those are just a few of the application frameworks where we're like, hey, look, we can apply it here, right? And it's because some company picked it up and was like, I'm gonna use this technology for this. Because remember, in the Gen AI boom, or even in the AI boom of 2020, a lot of AI companies showed up on the scene. This was even before Gen AI came out. Gen AI came out in 2022. So they were all services, or they used some core open source, but then they wrapped the technology around it, and that was like their product, right? So that's where a lot of these application frameworks began, and they're built by other companies, right? So we've just optimized the framework to fit on our technology. So it runs on GPUs, and then we've curated the GPU to be optimized for that application. So it's kind of like a two-way dance happening, but that's how you're seeing this proliferation of the GPU. It's now being used for so many different applications, but we've also fine-tuned it in different ways for those applications. So to answer your question, how do you get involved with those things? Well, you work with companies that you're passionate about, right? Like you can find an AI company basically serving any industry. And if you look deep into the technology, they're using some open source, they're probably using a lot of NVIDIA, and they're using that as a framework to develop their own products. Did I answer your question? Okay. There was the next one.
Yeah, from
and then I'll come up there.
away from like the technical approach and more into that kind of sales approach that your bread and butter right now. I know that you have your engineering background and your CS background, but with all that ever-changing developments in AI and CUDA and Maxine and everything you guys are doing at NVIDIA, how do you as a sales specialist stay on top of the game?
It's hard. I had to learn all of this today. I mean, I still haven't learned it, right? Because it's because I've been buried in Omniverse, and now my worlds are converging, right? Because AI is now converging with Omniverse for this digital twin. This thing has taken shape and evolved in 8 months from when I started, it was completely different. So I have to keep learning it, and I have to know what's happening in the space. And we have a lot of experts. We hire a lot of experts. I'm a generalist to some degree. I mean, I have, again, I keep saying this, I'm proud to say I've learned a lot in Omniverse, but I have no business being in Omniverse, right? I don't have a 3D background. But we've hired, a specialist from 3D, and she's, ran shotgun with me on meetings. I'm more of a business person, so I try to understand, well, what are you trying to do? Like, what do you, because sometimes when you're too deep in the technology, you can't see the forest from the hills, right? Like you're a little bit too here, and I'm looking at it from very big space. And so that combination of skills is really valuable because she sees it a certain way, I see it a different way. And then we have, amazing talent at NVIDIA. I mean, everyone's a genius there. And it's hard to shine among geniuses, but you find your niche, you find your path, but staying on top of the technology is key. So, yeah.
Thank you.
One question over there, and I'll come to you.
So, I actually worked with Omniverse.
Yeah.
I used to work at Accenture.
Oh,
Yeah.
You're our big partner right now. We just did a huge, splash with you guys, yeah.
So I actually built an application, not built, but I was a UX designer for an application with Omniverse, and we basically leveraged digital twin for construction purposes, for architecture and civil services.
Yep.
I wanted to know, since you mentioned UX and UI, do you
Yes.
have internal product teams
Yes.
at NVIDIA that work on the UX for these platforms?
Yes. So first of all, I have a question for you. Did you work on Song, Accenture Song?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's how we know about Accenture being, because they have this sort of like content creation or ad tech arm of Accenture, which is where this huge partnership started in the first place. But to answer your question, yes, we have all of these people. We are just spread very thin, right? So we are working on 1 million products, and every 2 weeks something changes because the market direction is going like this, so we get moved, right? So we're a 30-person startup, 30,000-person startup with a market cap of $3 trillion. So in comparison to our peers, just by market cap alone, we're like minuscule. And I know with compared to, you know, Accenture, the plan is for us to have 1 million, or people, the size of our company selling Omniverse at Accenture, 30,000 people, right? Which is wild to us. We're like, I don't understand how that even works. Well, we only have 400 dedicated to Omniverse today in our current company. So yes, we do, to answer your question, we do have those folks working on UI. I don't know if there was a secondary question, but I think they just get moved around a lot, and it's like, you know, everything's very fluid at NVIDIA.
No, I was just trying to find out because, like, I found the technology pretty interesting while I was working on it, and we built basically for MR, they're a builder in UAE.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just trying to figure out if that's.
Are they hiring? Are you asking if they're hiring?
Yeah.
So all our jobs are posted on our job board, and you know, like I said, it's really competitive right now. The only way to get in is through a referral, and even with the referrals, you have a 1 in 12 chance. So it doesn't mean to discourage you. I don't mean to discourage you. You just keep trying. You know, you can email me. You can, you know, I'll probably ask you for a blurb, right? Because like to really make you stand out, you need to talk to the hiring manager. It's like, why are you such a great fit for this role? So, like I said, there's a lot of competition right now, and we could find a home for someone somewhere, but that's kind of what's going on. Question here.
Yes. I'm kind of interested in like the robotics and hardware side of things.
Yeah.
So like hearing about Isaac and kind of how you guys use it to train robotics. I was just wondering, does it integrate or build off of like ROS, or is it like just like distinguish and you're just trying to go in a different direction?
No, I think it's built off of a lot of different open source frameworks, but Isaac itself is open source, right? So you can download it and use it today and build off of that. The goal with Omniverse is that it's a hub and spoke model. So Omniverse right now is the platform, and all of these tools and technologies are going to hook in via API, including ROS. I have a nephew who's actually speaking at the ROSCon this weekend or next week in Denmark. So you know, he's the one who, when I was interviewing at NVIDIA, he didn't know it was NVIDIA. He was giving me a crash course on robotics, and I was like, okay, what is that? What is that? So you know, the goal is for all these tools to hook into Omniverse as the spokes. So you have Omniverse as the hub, and then all these tools. So we're not competing with anyone. We're just building the stack with all these tools. And again, we're in the picks and shovels game, right? So we're like, use our shovel, or you could use this one, but we know you're going to end up using a GPU. So you might as well get this one because it's already optimized for that GPU. That's the game we're in right now. Everyone's a co-opetition. We're not in direct competition. They may see it differently, but we need them, they need us, and we like it that way. That's how we make money. Were there any other questions? These are great questions, by the way.
Is the driving sim data open source?
You mean the Drive application framework? I don't know. You can take a look on our, not Confluence, what's that one? Like our GitHub repository. You can check to see if there's open source models there.
digital factory.
Minimum, yeah.
Minimum. If we as students wanted to create an Omniverse project, what type of scope could we aim for, or would you recommend?
What, like, give me,
Let's say this room.
yeah, if you wanna do this room, but why would you wanna do this room? So this is really what I want you to think about, right? And this is what I do, right? I'm like, why do you need this room in a 3D? What would you think what is a problem here on campus? What is a problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I can just think of like fire alarm, right? So
Uh-huh.
you want to increase student flow from
Safety.
Let's say let's say not the building, because that would be more complex to capture, but like in this room itself, there are 3 doors. So what would it look like if we had 4 doors? So
Yeah. So now you're going into more construction use case, and it's like safety, operational planning.
Well, that's just like the obvious thing we could do.
Yeah.
If we're designing like for digital twinning this.
So here's a way I would think about problem setting. This will be the last question, unless someone else has a burning desire to ask a question. So the way you want to think about setting up a use case, you want to think about what is a burning problem? Like, and it doesn't have to be urgent. Urgency helps, right? It helps people open up their wallets. But what is a burning desire for a problem to be solved, right? What is a problem that you guys are having today? And what could happen to solve, what could happen in, you don't have to design it, but what is one way you can solve for it? Like, just name a problem, it could be anything. Traffic, right? Traffic's really bad getting here in the morning at a specific time on specific streets. What can we do? Like, what's the digital twin of this space that we can leverage to show how we can improve traffic? And where could we start? Do we want to build a flyover? Do we want to maybe build LAX is a perfect example, right? So LAX, before they had the LA exit parking lot, I'm sorry, I'm from LA, so, it was horrendous trying to get in there with Ubers and shuttles and cars and all that stuff. And then eventually they came up with the design of having an LAX parking lot, physical space, where everyone could get shuttled to, because the shuttles are already coming through the terminals, and then they can get picked up there, and that would improve the operational flow of traffic into LAX. That's a perfect use case, right? So when you start thinking about digital twins, don't just think about how cool that experience would be. Think about, from an industrial standpoint, what is a problem you're trying to solve? And what benefit do people gain from solving that problem? Is it just you benefiting from it, or is it a lot of people benefiting from it? And that's how you start really kind of like peeling the layers of the onion on business use cases and building proposals. And you can always build it, but you want to build it for the right reasons. And like I said, half of my job is qualifying out bad opportunities, or just not qualified opportunities. I'm like, no, you don't need a digital twin. Bye. See ya. So with that, I'm going to conclude. I want to thank you guys all for your time. Great questions.